Let us pray. Oh Lord, may the words of our mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord. Amen. Last week, Reverend Nathan spoke on the first week of Advent with the theme of hope, with a focus on Isaiah chapter 2, verses 1 to 5. It's been a pretty busy week, so let's hear some refresher phrases to get us ready and to jog our memories. Let us go up to the mountain. Let us walk in the light of the Lord. No divisions. No labels that divide. A kingdom. So here we are again, this second week of Advent, that time of darkness, waiting, longing, but this time with the theme of peace. So for those of you who hate waiting and longing and darkness, I have perfected a horrible 10-second sermon just for you. Since Isaiah 11, verses 1 to 10, can be an easy one to preach if you just simply overlay Jesus onto the passage. You ready for my terrible 10-second sermon? Ready?
Yeah, ready.
Okay. Verse 1 of Isaiah, Jesus is the shoot that comes out of the stock of Jesse. Verse 6, a little child shall lead them. That's baby Jesus. Verse 10, nations shall inquire him. That's Jesus. Jesus has fulfilled this prophecy by being born. Hope achieved, peace has come, amen. Cue the week 2 Advent hymn, done. Who wants to meet up at Bob Evans for lunch? It's been done before, many a sermon. But in doing this kind of preaching, we miss so much of what Isaiah can speak to our present context today. Though centuries old, Isaiah still speaks to God's people in light of the activity and the agency of God, for God to prepare us for what is about to happen. If you have any doubt about the way prophets talk about God's take on the future, just look at all those shall verbs used in today's passage. So grammar nerds everywhere, you're welcome. Now I assure you we will get back to Jesus. But first, let's hear what the prophet wants to say to us this morning. Because Isaiah 11:1 starts with such an upbeat note, it's important that we see why. What comes just before this context? So we're going to focus real quick on verses 33 and 34 from chapter 10. Those verses read, "Look, the sovereign Lord of hosts will lap the boughs with a terrifying power. The largest trees shall be cut down, and the lofty will be brought low. He will hack down the thickets of the forest with an axe, and Lebanon with its majestic trees shall fall." So there is nothing but doom for Israel right before this verse. Israel will be hacked down with an axe, nothing left but stumps. And according to verse 1, this Hebrew word used for stumps is the kind of word that indicates a terminated plant from which nothing can grow. You see, the Assyrian Empire comes and eventually destroys Israel, followed later on by Babylon's desolation. The kings of Israel were powerless to do anything about it. Why? Their leadership lacked the spirit of Yahweh. what Isaiah tells us. We may recall in the Old Testament several places where the Spirit of the Lord or the Spirit of Yahweh, as especially described in 1 Samuel 16 and chapter 11, describes the Spirit of Yahweh as an irresistible, generative, authorizing wind that just fell upon David. This irresistible, generative, authorizing wind fell on David when it was removed from Saul. And that Spirit of Yahweh was not with King Ahaz or King Hezekiah, both who offered corruption, oppression, and injustice in their time. Israel suffered from a leadership where power was in the hands of the wealthy and the powerful based on what advantaged and benefited them, forget the others. And in Isaiah's time, there were no penalties for those who did not curb the wicked, for those who preyed on the meek, the vulnerable, and the poor. They did not possess a spirit of wisdom or faithfulness. The list of injustices go on, but we need to understand that Judah's Davidic hopes were spent. Peace was non-existent, and they only knew despair. But Isaiah's words call us back to a hope and a peace restored as we are summoned by God's expectation in the face of extremely discouraging circumstances. It's a declaration that stands in direct contrast to the terror and the brutality that pervades our world today and informs our personal and our corporate decision-making. News of terrorism, war, economic collapse, climate catastrophe, this all instills a deep sense of anxiety. As a mom of 2 little kids, I feel it. And I suspect some here are even acquainted with violence that others of us can scarcely imagine. We can all relate to the feelings of both weakness and aggression. Isaiah articulates this as prey and predator. Most of us have felt preyed upon at one time or another. And sometimes, if we're honest, we've been the predator or the oppressor in one way or another as well. Though Isaiah speaks of a future time when predator and prey feast and rest together, his vision can have transformative implications now if we allow the possibility of conversion in our hearts during this Advent season. Today, let us give some thoughts to those areas in our lives where we feel weak, as well as those areas where we may be prone to aggression or even violence. We give thought to these things because this is how a peaceful kingdom starts. This is how hope finds its way. It emerges as a tiny green shoot in a very unexpected place. So, chapter 11, verse 1, today starts with vision of renewed hope on the other side of war, the other side of exile, and the other side of brokenness. The prophet is talking about a time when the broken monarchy of Judah will be unbroken and revitalized. When a different kind of leadership comes from Jesse's stock of leadership. Leadership marked by God's Spirit resting on that leader, not simply bringing peace to the people of Israel, but the whole earth, whole creation. I doubt Isaiah got to fully realize this hope, since we know that the nation of Israel was crushed by Assyria soon after. And once the nation did see itself renewed, it had nothing close to a Davidic-like king. And yet Isaiah's words were preserved, and they became a hope for generation after generation. The other readings for this second Sunday of Advent are from the books of Romans and the Gospel of Matthew. And in Romans, we actually hear the Apostle Paul being encouraged by Isaiah's prophecy, talking about how droves of Gentiles are captivated by Jesus' life and ministry, coming from all nations. And the writer of the Gospel of Matthew draws on Isaiah by talking about John the Baptist preparing the way for new leadership springing forth. And as Christians living in 2019 during Advent, we proclaim that Jesus fulfills this vision of leadership articulated by Isaiah. And yet, let me be clear. Jesus does not make the vision of leadership expressed by Isaiah obsolete. Let me say it one more time. We can know that Jesus fulfills this vision of leadership articulated by Isaiah without rendering this prophecy obsolete. Because Jesus showed us a way of God unlike the world, bringing truly good news of an upside-down kingdom with a whole different kind of government, where the last are first and the first last, where lavish grace and mercy are given to all freely, where the most wretched and rejected of society can find themselves held lovingly close and called beloved by God, where the wolves lay down with the lambs. Jesus was loved, received, celebrated, and eventually crucified because he fully embodied and practiced this vision of leadership. It's crucial that we read Isaiah through the lens of Jesus, but a lens that allows Jesus to amplify this peaceful kingdom like a sun through a magnifier to focus on our lives and situations and the responsibility we have in our generation for those on whom the Spirit rests. The truth of Advent's season of darkness, longing, and waiting reveals a way that we are able to live and flourish in anticipation of coming light. So Advent is a good time for re-examining our old assumptions and definitions, including how we think of and use power. In Christ, power has been reinterpreted. How might our own lives be reinterpreted in his light? How might our lives be remade so that the wolves and the lambs within us, within society, and within the world live together in a new kind of harmony? Our own lives can become peaceable kingdoms when subjected to the judgment and the transformation of Christ. Botham Jean was a 26-year-old accountant, and he was shot in 2018 while he was in his own apartment, unarmed, simply relaxing at home after a long day. Police officer Amber Geiger mistook Botham's apartment for her own, she thinking Botham was an intruder. And if you've been up on the news, a few weeks ago, Jean's family testified at Geiger's sentencing hearing, where she was sentenced to 10 years for murder. I asked myself, can a shoot come out from the stump of this tragedy? While on the stand, Brent Jean, Botham's 18-year-old little brother, publicly forgave Geiger for killing his brother and requested permission to hug her. After being granted permission by the judge, the two embraced, tears flowing, and Brent telling her of God's love and forgiveness. What darkness the Jean family feels. And yet what hope and peace Brent was able to live. His show of leadership left me speechless. And Brent Jean is a man on whom the Spirit rests. Our world today is in desperate need for justice, wisdom, dignified leadership, as was with Isaiah, Paul, and Matthew's time. And we can be advocates for healing of the world that Isaiah dreamed about so long ago. Isaiah calls us to it, and Jesus empowers us to it. Can a shoot come out from the stump of our own lives? The stump of the church? The stump of our government? The stump of the nations? Yes. For the Spirit of the living God tells us and shows us again and again and again. So, dear ones, let us work together for peace. Peace that covers the earth